Jerry Jones is sick. He said the loss last night against the Niners, it was sickening. Everybody who loses, when your season ends, don't forget what goes into a season. You start with shorts on, then you do workouts with shoulder pads and shorts, then you go full pads, then you go through preseason, which stinks. You learn the playbook. By the way, the front office has put their team together during the offseason, but then the grind of the season, week in, week out, you get into a routine. It's all about football. Then you make the playoffs, which the Cowboys should be expected to do because Jerry Jones is the best GM in football. Most valuable team, so that means he's the best owner in football and the best GM in football. You work your ass off all season, and then boom, it's gone, done. And now what? You wake up today, Monday, January 23rd, Jerry Jones opens his eyes. I'm picturing him with his nightgown, and he's got sort of his Kris Kringle hat on, and he puts his feet on the floor, and he heads back to the office and says, all right, I got to push the boulder back up the hill. That's the equivalent of what every team executive does once their team's eliminated, whether it's the last day of the season when you haven't made the playoffs or when you've been eliminated from the playoffs. And here's what's worse, when you win the Super Bowl or the World Series, you still wake up the next day while you're planning parades and getting all excited and fitting yourself for rings. You still know you're about to push that boulder back up the hill. So I'm watching the Cowboys-Niners game, and I'm wondering how Dak Prescott doesn't have turnovers in his DNA the way Jerry Jones told me. I never have asked a player what a player has in his DNA. Do you not have the ability to make contact with 2 strikes in your DNA? I maybe should have asked that question more. Do you not have the ability to make a field goal or an extra point? Is that not in your DNA? Jerry Jones spent all the time in the week leading up to the Niners game telling us that Prescott's great. Don't worry about Marr. The kicker, he's going to be fine. Everything's great. Reminds me of Wile E. Coyote holding up the umbrella. The boulder's about to fall on his head. By the way, call back to the boulder from 3 minutes ago. Looking up, and all of a sudden, boom, you're crushed. But then you come back to life because a new season starts. But you do the same thing over and over again, Jerry, and expect that you're going to get a different result. Are you insane? You're about to be in the 4th year of a Mike McCarthy era. How's that gone? You're about to go 8 years with Dak Prescott? Do you not watch that game like the rest of us and say that Dak Prescott does not have what it takes to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback? That your defense under Dan Quinn was superior, but that your offense with Zeke and everybody else, there were injuries, that it's just not enough? He made a mistake as GM yesterday, which struck me because owners need to teach their GMs better. Owner Jerry Jones allowed GM Jerry Jones to talk to the media after the game in a scrum. He was getting on the team bus or the team limo or the team transportation to get the hell out of San Francisco. That's one thing. When you lose, you're not spending the night. You are getting out of there. Get on the plane, get home, goodbye. He was talking about Mike McCarthy, saying, what are you asking about Mike McCarthy? There's no decision that needs to be made. He was asked, is there a decision to be made? He said, no. Not at all. After every season, no matter where your team is with their coach and in what year of the contract your team is in, every GM and every president and owner, everyone evaluates whether or not they want their manager or coach to be back. It does, even if you win the World Series, it's not a fait accompli. It's not a foregone conclusion. You are doing that analysis. You would never have your GM after a playoff loss say anything like that because you don't know what your owner's going to want. Now, I grant you the GM and the owner is the same person, but they really aren't. The mentality of an owner and the mentality of a GM have to be different. And maybe that's been Jerry Jones's problem, why they haven't been to World Series, why they haven't been, we're live. Why they haven't been to a 3-6-9. Maybe that's why the Cowboys haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1995 or January of 1996. Maybe that's why they could only win their first playoff game on the road in over a decade when they beat the Tom Brady Tampa Bay Buccaneers this last week. But you got to separate yourself even when you play both roles. Maybe Jerry Jones has just been bad at that from the beginning. But he's got a lot to look at. When he looks as a GM, not an owner, because owners don't know anything about this, they're not focused on it. But when GMs look at that last drive that the Cowboys had, they see that Dak almost took a safety. They see that there was a wide receiver who was sloppy and didn't get his second foot down. And don't say that that was a tough play. That was just slop, straight slop. His name was Schultz. When you see that your coach is going for it on fourth down in the first quarter and then not going for it on fourth down with 2.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter after he went for it in the first quarter, as a GM, you're looking at that game. You're looking at the execution of the final non-Hail Mary, which wasn't a Hail Mary. It was like a 20-yard down and in or button that ended up being a problem. When you are the GM and you're looking at your kicker that gets an extra point blocked where a touchdown could have won a game and instead could only tie the game at 19-12, you say, we have a real problem with our team that needs to be dealt with. I'm going to figure out how to make the changes necessary, and then I'm going to go to my owner and explain the changes I want to make. I know that I've got Dak for 2 more years, and the cap hits are insane, like over $50 million for the next 2 years. So I'm going to have to not suggest to my owner that I move on from Dak. May I explore a trade? I may. May I see if there's a way to potentially upgrade at the quarterback position, upgrade at the kicker position, upgrade on offense in general? I got to think about those things if I'm GM. I look at that game and say, I'm not good enough. We're not good enough. Then you go to your owner and you say, this is my plan. That's the GM-owner relationship. And you use the president as the person in the middle to try to get information. You think that a GM of the Cowboys, whoever that would be, would not use Stephen Jones to get to Jerry Jones? Hey, we got to really talk about the owner. Of course you do. But when your owner and your GM are the same person, how do you separate those conversations without being a split personality? You can't. If there were ever a moment for Jerry Jones to fire his GM and his head coach, this would be it. I would love to see Jerry Jones take the microphone. As proud as I am of him for owning the fact that he is making decisions as the owner to the point that he names himself GM, I would have so much more respect for the owner if he would look at his GM and announce that he's replacing his GM. It would be a very simple press conference. You only need 1 chair, maybe 2 microphones. You can move the chair from side to side. You think that'll happen? You think Jerry Jones and a man who's built a franchise to be maybe the most valuable franchise in all of sports, you think that owner is going to be able to look at that GM and then look in the mirror and say, I will subjugate my ego and I will recognize that the most important thing is to win. And in order to win, I need to be better. Therefore, I'm firing myself. It would be a first. Owners don't fire themselves.